All right, so we're gonna get into some new material, and we're gonna talk about building a composition. Okay, so I keep saying the word composition, but what does that really mean? Well, a composition for me is like if I bring in one photo, I take a photo with my camera, I bring it in, maybe I change the size of it, make it smaller, maybe I crop a little bit out. That's fine. But when I think of a composition, what I'm really thinking of is combining different elements together to make something that is in image format. Okay. I like to think of it like building a collage. I don't know if you ever built a collage, maybe in like a high school art class or something like that, but it's like you take different elements, right? You take like newspaper and magazine and some clay and whatever, right? And you mix it all together and that's your collage. Or maybe like think about like a recipe. If you do any cooking, it's like, you may add or subtract a little bit amount of oregano or put in a new ingredient or something along those lines, right? So that's kind of how I think of a collage. So I think of a composition. So here's like this is a Picasso from 1929. It's like he's combining drawing, painting, there's some charcoal there, there's some newspaper bits. This person combined different pieces of colored print, magazines, obviously, all that good stuff. We can also do that digitally. So here it's like you can tell that like different digital elements were combined from different, photos. It's like this woman, these lips, this butterfly, this clock. Here it's same thing. It's like there's this person, we got some more illustrative elements happening here. Sometimes you can combine elements and it's meant to not look like a collage. It's meant to like look natural, so to speak. We would call this compositing. So it's like this is actually built out of different images, but it's set up in a way to mimic or create the idea that it is a real scene. So compositions, you're bringing in different elements to form a bigger, more complex composition. So it's like image, 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 text, main person, more text, text, image, 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 decoratives. There's like another image behind there. Boom, boom, boom. Here it's like these are all different graphics being brought together. All right, so I'm gonna go to Photopea and let's make sure you guys have the files, the exercises for today. And I'm gonna go to open. And I'm going to go to exercise one. And so what we need to do is we need to, in order to combine raster elements, we have to select what part of the image we want to work with. The way I kind of explain it is like if I was in, I'm just going to make quickly a text document. Okay, I'm going to use Google Docs because that's what I normally use. And I'm just going to throw some text in it real quick. Oops. All right. Here's some lorem ipsum, or dummy text, as we would call it. If I wanted to say, for instance, take the middle paragraph and make it red, or maybe change it from its default typeface into a new typeface, how do I tell Google Docs that that's what I want to do? The answer to that is, well, you have to select the text, right? And by selecting it, I'm basically signifying to the program, this is the thing that I want to change. And I could change its color to like maybe red, or maybe I'm going to change its typeface from to lobster, because why not, right? And so this is in like a program like, Microsoft Word or TextEdit. How do we do that in an editing program? Well, what we do is we have what are called selection tools. What these selection tools essentially do is they select pixels, and that tells, Photoshop or Photopea or whatever the program is, that is the area we want to work with. Okay. So the next couple examples are just learning, we'll be learning on how to select things using the tools in Photopea. The very first one is what is referred to as the rectangle select. If I click and drag on this canvas here, I am getting what is known as a selection. So everything inside of this is selected. Everything outside of this is not selected. Okay. If I don't like my selection and you want to make a new one, you could go to select and deselect. Keyboard shortcut would be Option or Command D. Okay. Or Command or Control D, I should say, not Option. So if I use that's my keyboard shortcut. If I click and drag, like let's say I do it like this, you can actually move the selection once you've made it. If I still have the rectangular select, I can click and drag it, and you can see I can literally move it. If you want to move it one pixel at a time, you can use up, down, left, right, um, arrows on your keyboard, and this does what's called nudging, which basically means to move it just a single pixel. Once it's selected, you can use the move tool. The move tool is at the top, looks like a black arrow with a little thing like this. And what I can do is click and move around the selection that I made. When you're done, you don't want to move it around anymore. I can go to select, deselect, or control or command D. Okay, so let's select a section, use the move tool, move. When I'm done, select, deselect, or command or control D. Make a selection, use the move tool, make some abstract art here, command or control D. Okay. Now, I want you to notice that when I make selections, I'm getting these really crisp cuts. Okay. I'm going to go back to I'm going to undo this. The easiest way to do this is I'm just going to use step backwards a few times. Oops. This is when I do a Command Z or a step backwards, it undoes the last thing that I did. And what I'm going to do is before I make my selection, I'm going to have the rectangle select, but under this option here that says feather, I'm going to turn this to like 10 or 15. What this does is instead of giving you crisp cuts, it's gonna blur the edges a little bit. So now when I click and drag, see I'm getting this much more faded kind of smudged edge that goes around it. All right, so this is what using the feathered edge would do. It gives you kind of this, kind of a soft feeling there. To not have this in place, just basically set this from whatever number it is to 0. And then if I go back, it goes back to having nice, crisp cuts. Now, at the moment, when I make a selection, you'll notice it makes a rectangle. If you want to make a perfect square, hold down Shift, and you'll notice that it kind of constrains the proportions to where the width and the height are the same. You might also notice that when I click and drag, it always starts in the upper left-hand corner. Most computers, when they do tasks, do it from the top left downward because computers read code top down usually. So that's why, if you want to know why. If you don't want to start from the upper left, but you want to start from the center, hold down the Option or the Alt key, and then you'll notice that you can now move from the center. Okay. Now, at the moment, every time we've done something, it's been like a rectangle, right? Or a square. What if I want something a little bit more complex? Well, I can go up here, and this allows me to kind of update my selection. Now, the first one says replace. And what that means is every time I click and drag, it replaces my last selection with my current selection, right? You see that? This next one here is called, this is add to selection, or something along those lines. And when I click and drag, you can see that it's actually adding to my selection rather than replacing the last selection. Okay. This allows me to get sort of more unique, selections here. Um, I can also use this, what's called subtract selection. So when I click and drag, you can see it makes, it subtracts by literally cutting out the center of something. I could also use intersect, and what intersect will do is if I click and drag, I can't let go of my mouse here because it'll do it. But essentially what it will, what it's trying to do is it keeps the areas where the two selections overlap each other, kind of like a Venn diagram. And so that would actually be like this area. So when I let go, you can see that that's what happens there. Okay. So you can use these tools and the feather tool to kind of change your selection and make it, a little bit more unique there. Let's go to exercise 2. So in Photopea, if I don't know if this is going to come up because I think on a recording video it doesn't work when I zoom in, but um, if you ever see that one of the tools in the toolbox has like this little kind of star shape, little shine in the lower right hand corner, that means that there's additional tools underneath it. So if I click and hold, you can see I now get something called the ellipse select as opposed to the rectangle select. What that does is rather than making a predetermined shape of a square or a rectangle, it can make an oval or a circle. So if I click, you can see now it basically does the same thing, except rather than making a square or rectangle shape, it makes an oval shape. So I can make ovals like this. I can also, if you want to make a perfect circle, hold down Shift, and you can see I'm making a perfect circle shape. Just like with the rectangle select, if you want to work from the center rather than working from the upper left, I can hold on Option or Alt, Option on a Mac computer keyboard, Option or Alt on a Windows keyboard. So you can see I'm starting from the center there. Just like with the rectangle select, I also get the feather option. This means I will not have, instead of having crisp cuts, I will have blurred or kind of smudged edges. I like to think of it once again, kind of like if you ever worked with like chalk or craypa and you kind of like took your finger and kind of like smudged it, maybe charcoal, if you've ever done charcoal drawings in like an art class or something, it's a lot like that. So I'm going to click and drag. Oops, let me set the feathering first. Let me set it to like, I don't know, 10. I'm going to click and drag and then move, and you can see I get this feathering here. Okay. Turn the feathering off. Let's set it to 0. All right. And just like with the rectangle select, I can, this is the replace option, which means every time I click and drag, it replaces the old selection with the new selection. I could use the add to selection, which means when I click and drag, I'm making kind of a more unique shape. I can also use the subtract, and that would allow me to basically cut holes or cut away from the main shape here. All right. So that is the basics here of, that is the basics of doing selections. Using rectangle and elliptical or ellipse select to select part of your raster image, in this case, a circle and a square, and move it around. Okay. Why don't you guys try that out? That was exercise 1 and 2.